One of the reasons why I started this channel was because I got some really great advice last year. I had a friend, they said, Jada, you should start this channel because you're going to want to look back and reminisce on your journey and see where things shifted. So that's one of the reasons why I started this channel. But one of the other main reasons why I started this channel was to help people know what exactly it looks like to be a professional athlete, because there's not a lot of information out there, and I wish that I had somebody to show me what being a pro athlete was like, because I was in for a really big shock my rookie year. So this channel is for people who are looking to be a pro athlete, or you're just curious of what it's like to be a pro athlete, or you just love me and you want to support me and love you too. Because there's not that much information out there about what it is to be a pro athlete, and I'm here to be just transparent about what it looks like, so that if you wanted to go into that, you kind of know what you're getting yourself into. And that's exactly what we're going to get into today. What exactly was my rookie year like? I'm Jada Griffin, and this is my Track Girl Diary, and I'm excited to get into what exactly my rookie year was like. Before we dive in, let me know in the comments if you're a runner too, or if you're just a sports fan, and what was your biggest challenge this past year or this past season, or what was your biggest achievement this past season. If you take nothing from my video but this one thing, you need to know that running as a professional athlete is nothing like running in college. It's completely different. It's so drastically different that it's just a different beast. My rookie year felt like I was starting from scratch. So getting into that, I ended my collegiate career at the USA Championships in 2013, which serves as the trials for the World Championships at Budapest. And it was my first experience really seeing what it is like to be a professional athlete. It was just a little taste of it, traveling by yourself, not really having your coach. You kind of just have to manage yourself, which is something that I'm kind of used to in college when you get to the bigger meets, but that was just a completely different experience for me. So I ended my collegiate year at the USA Championships in 2013. Not 2013, what am I talking about? 2023. And at that point I was undecided if I wanted to keep running or not. I thought that that was a good way to end the collegiate career, but I was still debating if I wanted to run. And during that summer, around August, the championships was in July, around August I kept running between that time, and my friend reached out to me and was like, hey, we need a leg for our mixed relay at this meet that we're doing, we would love to have you. And so I was like, yeah, of course. So I go and I run at this meet, and it was kind of my first professional meet. It was my first post-collegiate meet, and it was very relaxed, chill, and very fun. It was a night run. I love night runs, and I just went out there and I had a really great time, and I realized that I wasn't really ready to give up running. And so I talked to my coach, and I was feeling a little bit insecure about starting my professional career because I didn't have a contract, so I would have to do things a bit out of pocket, because it's a little bit pay to play at first. So I told my coach, I said, I would give it a year. He was saying, I think that you're too talented for you to stop, and you could really find success in this if you keep going. And so I said, I'll give it a year, see what it's like. And this is me at the end of my first year. But so what did it look like after, when I actually started being a professional? One thing that I learned as a pro athlete is the training block is drastically different than in college. In college, you train from September to December, and then you start your indoor season, and then you have your outdoor season. But when you're a pro, a lot of pros don't do indoors because it doesn't pay. You have a few meets that do pay, but they're very rare, so a lot of pros just train through indoors. So my training block was, the last meet was in August, and I ran here and there twice a week between August and September, and then we started pre-season. So the training that comes before preseason in September. We did twice a day. We lifted weights 3 times a week. I mean, not twice a day. We did twice a week, and we lifted 3 times a week for September. And then once we kind of got back into the groove of it, we really started hitting it in October, November, December, and January, and February, March, April, whatever. The preseason was something that I had never experienced before. That was probably the hardest preseason that I've had since I've started running. It was just, as a pro, in college, you can have a little fun here and there, but as a pro, this is your job, and you have to take it a lot more serious than you do in college, because this is how you get paid, so you have to take it serious. In preseasons, we do a lot of bleachers in stadiums, and I don't know if you've ever seen A&T Stadium before, but they have a really big stadium. The bleachers go straight to the sky, so doing that workout absolutely sucks, but it gets you right for preseason. I will say that. I think they're better than doing hills. So in September, all fall, we're just training really hard. Me and the 400 hurdler, we ran about 5 times a week with Saturday and Sunday off. And that's another thing that I learned from being a pro, is that your off season lasts about a couple of weeks, 3 weeks before you get back into running. So you might end your season in August, September, October, 3 weeks off where you're still supposed to be running here and there, keeping your fitness up, and then you get straight back into the preseason. So you don't really take any breaks at all when you're a pro. You might have time for a little vacation, but not really. In the preseason was just so hard. I don't even know a workout that we did. I wouldn't say that it's crazier than in college, but the times were obviously faster because I was faster, and just that accumulation of fatigue between going to school, going to work, and practicing, I feel like it made the workouts a little bit harder. And in the middle of my preseason, I actually got the opportunity to compete for Team USA at the Pan American Games in Chile in November. So that I was really nervous for, because I'm in the middle of preseason. We had about a few serious practices before I had to leave for Chile for 2 weeks, and I had no idea what time I was going to run. I was in the mixed 4x4 relay, and I was in the women's 4x4 relay, and I was just, what am I about to run? I've only been training for a couple of months, not seriously. I ended up going there. I had a really fantastic time, and the food was so good. The food was so good. Like, I would go back. I would live there. And I went out there and I ran a 51 split, and it was good enough to get us back into 3rd place and medal and bring home a medal. So that was super exciting, and I really surprised myself and my coach, because it's like I didn't know race specific training in November or leading up to November. So for me to split something of 51 was really telling that it was going to be a really good season. But let's see if it was. But I actually have my medal right here. This is the box that they gave me to put it in, and this is the medal. Can you see it? Oh, it's so pretty. It looks like mint chocolate chip. Can you see it? It's so pretty. And here's the back. Can you see it? Ooh, gorgeous. Give me 14 of them. Let me put it back. And let me know in the comments if you want me to do a video on what it was like to compete for Team USA and what my experience was like at the Pan American Games. But after I got back from Chile, we went straight back into preseason. We trained from November up until March, which in March I had my first meet. But around December, I got COVID from my job because I work at a healthcare facility, and once COVID goes around, there's so many germs and people coughing into the air, and so once COVID goes around, everyone kind of gets COVID, and it sucks. And it really affected my training. After that, I wasn't the same, and it was so bad that I was at practice and I was just dying horribly at a workout that I had previously done before and was able to hit the times. That my coach mid-workout was like, yeah, I want you to take a break for 2 weeks and let's figure out what's going on. And so I took 2 weeks off trying to figure out. At the time, I didn't realize that it was because of the COVID. I thought it was something maybe in my blood work, or so I started taking a multivitamin, just trying to fix things, because getting a blood work test is so expensive, and I wasn't doing that. So yeah, I come back, and this is around February, and so the season started about March, late March. And I went out there and I ran a 52, which was similar to what I had ran the previous year as my opener, so I was at least happy that I was consistent, given that my preseason wasn't really what I needed. And then after I ran my first meet, I got an opportunity to model for a certain sports brand that I'm not going to name because the visual has not dropped yet, and I signed an NDA, so I'm not trying to get sued. But they flew me out to South Africa, and I was able to model for them, and it was such a fantastic experience. I was there for about 2 weeks, and I did 2 days worth of shooting. One was a 14-hour day from 4 a.m. to like 9 or something, and then I had a day off, and then I had a 12-hour shoot. And I was running during that time, but it wasn't race specific, obviously. Well, not obviously, but it wasn't race specific, so I did kind of lose a little bit of my training when I was there shooting for the TV commercial and the magazine shoot. But I did do a lot of running. Oh my gosh, they worked me like a dog. They had a stunt double, but they didn't even put her in. I had to do every stunt myself, so they really got their money's worth out of me, so I can't be mad at them. But I was there for 2 weeks, and it was so fantastic. It was so fantastic. And once the visuals drop, I will probably make a video on that, detailing what my experience was like. But during that time, I was running for the shoot, but I did lose some of my race-specific fitness when I was there. And so when I came back from South Africa, I had to hop back into another meet, and my time was just not, it was not giving, which is to be expected. I had a total of about 5 different races, or not 5, I had a total of 7 races the whole season, this past season, which was completely different to what I'm used to in college, because as a 400 runner, you kind of do a lot. You do the 400, you could do the 200, and then you do 4x4. So at any given meet, I'm racing about 3 to 4 times, because you might have 4x1 also. So to shift to the pro season where I'm running one 400 or a 400 and a 200 like every 2 weeks, it's because it's not every week, was a big adjustment for me that I feel like in this next upcoming season I'm gonna make sure I get more races in, because as a 400 runner you have to get that fitness up, because when it comes to big meets like trials, Olympics, anything that requires more than 1 round, you have to be able to run close to your PR or your PR 3 days in a row. And so having that relay really helps with that. And as a pro athlete, if you don't have that set relay built into your training group, it can be hard to find a relay. And so you have to start reaching out to people like, hey, are you going to be at this meet? Because I want to run a relay. You have to start coordinating where people are going to be at so that you can get that racing in. Because if to run for Team USA in the relays, you have to have a lot of relay experience, and I was training at NC State. I didn't really have a relay after my freshman or sophomore year, so I had to really build up my resume, and I'm still building up my resume, so that when it comes time to run the relays for a big meet, they can look back and be like, oh, she's very reliable, she's very consistent. So that's something that I'm working on. Finding people to run a relay at the pro level can be difficult, but it can be done. What after that? Another thing I learned as a pro athlete is the US doesn't host meets that often. There are like few meets in the US that aren't college meets, and you don't really want to run a college meet because you won't get paid. But if you run a professional meet, that's where the money starts coming in from, you know, placing at a meet. And so when you're a pro athlete, you kind of have to compete internationally, because like every other country will host meets, but the US only has like the American Track League to host meets. And so when I got back from South Africa, I started competing on a Canadian tour just across Canada and different areas. So I went to Ontario, did 2 meets there, took a few days off, went to Vancouver, and that was an experience. I feel like Chile really set me up because the food was so good. It was to die for. And then when I got to Canada, it was not good at all. Like, it was not good. I don't know what I was expecting, but I was so ready to go home. Like, I'm such a foodie. If the food is not good, I'm not having a good time, like, at all. So yeah, and it's easier to do a Canadian or a tour and just stay in that country than it is to do a meet, fly back home, go back there, fly back home. So I stayed in Canada for about 4 days before I came home for 2 days, and then flew to Vancouver, which is the opposite side of Canada. It's like by Washington, the state. Ontario, I went, was like outside of Detroit, Michigan. And that was a crazy story because, so as I said in my last video, I didn't have an agent, so I had to do all of the stuff myself. And so I made a very detailed itinerary so that I could follow along, and I sent it to my mom just in case I get snatched, so she knows where I'm supposed to be at. And I fly to Detroit. I was going to take the tunnel to Canada because they have a continuous shuttle going from Detroit to Ontario like every hour, which is no big deal. So I plan to take the shuttle. I get there, the whole city shut down because the Grand Prix is in town. So there's no shuttles. I'm sitting there trying to figure out how can I get across the border because I have a meet the next day. And I try to call Ubers. The Ubers are canceling on me because you have to have your passport with you. And a lot of them didn't have passports, so they keep canceling on me. I'm stuck at the airport, and after like 40 minutes, a Uber finally picks up and it's like, he'll take me across the border, no issue. That's a lie, big issues. He was saying he doesn't know if he has his passport, and he doesn't know if he's gonna be able to take me across the border, and he's super nervous because he was Muslim and he didn't want to be racially profiled, which is so true. But he was stressing me out, and we're trying to go through the city and every street is blocked off going towards the tunnel because the Grand Prix is in town. And we finally get to the bridge, and then we get stuck on the bridge for an hour and a half because everyone's trying to fit through this one tunnel that's open in Detroit to Canada. And he's stressing me out. He's like, I'm supposed to go out with my bros. I don't know if I'm gonna make it. You need to make sure that you pay me super well because I don't normally do this. And I'm stressed out because he's stressing me out, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna pay you well, it's no problem. He's like, usually people pay a lot for this and I don't usually do this. And I'm like, bro, just let me out at this point. Like, I'll walk. Like, if it's gonna be an issue, I'll just walk across the bridge, it's no problem. But we finally get through the bridge. They don't racially profile him, and he was super stressed out. He's like, what if they card me and they kick me out? I don't even know if I can go over the bridge, and Ubers can go over the bridge. And we get to the bridge, they don't even care. They're like, do you have any drugs? We're like, no. And then they just let us through. Not that big of a deal, but whatever. The meets in Canada were really nice. They were really put together well, and I'll probably be back next year or this upcoming season because I did like them a lot. It was just the food. I didn't like the food at all. But Canadians, if any Canadians watching this, y'all must be starving there because ain't no way. Ain't no way. I didn't even get anything complicated. I got a salmon and it had pistachios on it and it didn't taste like anything. And they didn't give me no salt or pepper. I'm like, okay. How you mess up salmon? That's irrelevant. So the tour was actually very hard for me because the way that I planned it out was kind of crazy. So I had a meet in Atlanta on the 31st of May, and I had a flight the next day out of North Carolina. So I had to be the rabbit in Atlanta, drive overnight to Raleigh, get on the plane at 6 a.m. and we left around 10 p.m. in Atlanta, and I got back home around like 3 a.m. so I had to go straight to the airport. And then that's when the whole Detroit stuff happened. And then I get to Detroit the next day. I compete the next day. I have a flight the day after that, and then I compete again. And then I fly home. So it was literally travel, compete, go home. And then I had a few days off, and then I flew to Vancouver, which is across the United States, way over there in the United States. So it's like a whole day's trip to get over there. And that meet was actually really well put together as well. And then I fly back home after that, and then I fly right back over there for the Olympic trials. And yeah, so I don't know why I did that to myself. I will be getting an agent because I'm not doing that again. But during this Canadian tour, I was feeling like my season wasn't going well. I had been feeling that all along, and so I kind of wanted to test my strength, and I impulsively dropped out of the 400 and I ran the 800 just to kind of see what the vibes were, and see if that's something that I wanted to do the next season, if I wanted to shift my event from 2.4 to 4.8. And I went out there and I actually placed third place, and I left with some prize money, so I really surprised myself. I ran a 2:08, and I didn't tell my coach until after I ran it because I didn't want to tell him before and then run a really crappy time and then be like, oh. So I called him after the fact and was like, this is what I did. I dropped out the 4. And he was super supportive, and he was really surprised that I was able to run that time. Not surprised, but like impressed that I was able to run that time with no training, 800 specific training. And I was kind of the same way. I was really impressed and surprised that I was able to do that. But that kind of left me in a predicament because I hadn't run the Olympic trial standard yet, and the deadline was like the next week. And so I had one more meet to run this time, and I ended up getting it done. It wasn't the time that I wanted, but it was fast enough to get me to the Olympic trials. And so I was thanking my lucky stars because this meet was in June, and I had already bought my ticket for Olympic trials, my flight ticket, in February, because to get to Oregon from North Carolina can cost you about $1,000, $1,500, and the ticket that I saw was $300. So I was like, I need to get this now and just have faith that I'm gonna make it to Olympic trials, and that's exactly what happened. So thanking my lucky stars for that. And I ran the time like 3 days before the deadline for the Olympic trials, so that was really cool. However, at Olympic trials, I still felt like I wasn't prepared with my fitness to run the times. I hadn't PR'd all season, and I went out there. I felt good in my body, but I felt like I needed more training, just because with me getting sick and then leaving to do modeling, it kind of affected my training. And so that's something that I have to figure out for this next year. How do I do the opportunities that pop up while also attending to my training? Because I'm not gonna not do the opportunities, because as an unsponsored athlete, that's kind of how I get paid, except at the meets. So I have to do the other opportunities to make money, or else like I wouldn't get paid with anything track related during the off season. So yeah. Olympic trials came around. I felt really good in my body, but it didn't really translate onto the track. I don't know why when I go to Oregon, I just don't run that well. Like, same thing happened to me last year, but I ended up running a 53, which was the slowest time that I ran all season. And so, yeah, Olympic trials just didn't really work out for me the way that I wanted it to, but I didn't really expect anything else based on how my season had been going. So it wasn't really a surprise, but you know. I left Olympic trials feeling really, really down about the outcome of everything that happened, and feeling a little bit of FOMO, but also being happy that I could kind of just enjoy. I just took it for what it was. Like, I took a little break from training and just focused on having fun, because I had been working so hard for months and months and months and months. But as I was reflecting on my season, I realized that I had a really, really good first rookie year. Just with being able to compete with Team USA and being able to model with a really big company. That was my first acting job as well, because it was a TV commercial. And they kind of took a chance on me, and so those visuals should be dropping soon, and I'll definitely post them. And kind of opened the doors of what is available for me. And so now I have a lot of things coming up in the future that I'm looking forward to. I don't want to say too early because I don't want to spoil it or jinx it. and I got to travel to new countries like that I probably wouldn't have been able to go to otherwise, like South Africa and Chile, and I probably wouldn't have gone to Vancouver, but I got to travel to places, so that was a really good experience. And overall with track, it kind of didn't play out the way that I wanted it to play out, but it's kind of like the building blocks. Like every year I get a little bit further, and so after 1 year of just trying to see if I wanted to run still, I think that I'm gonna continue to run because it's not something I want to give up yet, and I don't want to leave with any regrets that are like, oh, I wonder what would have happened if I would have kept running. I don't want any of that. So a lot of people don't know that in track there are events outside of the Olympics every year, so there's something every year. So this upcoming year we have the World Championships in Tokyo, so that's definitely my goal. I've decided to take track more serious and just see where I can go instead of having one foot out the door and just being like, let me just, you know, get a job. So yeah, that's kind of where I stand with that so far. So that was my rookie year, and if you like this video, make sure you like the video and leave a comment, and make sure you subscribe if you want to see more content just about what it is like to be a professional track athlete. And I actually did a Q&A on my Instagram, so that will be my next video, just answering everyone's questions. And if you have any more questions, just make sure you leave it in the comment box below and I will get to them, and I will do them in my next video. And make sure you follow my social media so you can know what type of video that I'm going to be doing. I'll leave all of my social medias in the description box below. And thanks for watching. Bye!